All right, everybody, we're going to get started. I'm Barb Ewing, CEO of the Youngstown Business Incubator. We're very grateful for those of you in attendance and also especially for our speakers today. Our webinar series on how to build your advanced manufacturing company is going to be part of an ongoing series of programming that we're doing with support from the Thomas's Family Endowment, from the Youngstown Area Jewish Federation, the Small Business Administration, and of course, our great team and supporters from across the region. Just a note, this is being recorded and it will be posted on YouTube and on our website.
Yeah, it'll be on my webpage.
We really are, this is part of our programming to try to build momentum in Northeast Ohio and across the state of Ohio, but really anywhere in developing advanced manufacturing companies. If we want to rebuild the nation's manufacturing economy, it's got to start with not just existing manufacturing, but really upping the technology piece of it and building capacity from within. So we are always willing to look for ways to support small businesses and help companies, even if you're not within our geographic footprint. And as long as we've got that little SBA signature down at the bottom, we have some resources to work with companies, even if you're not in Ohio. So we would really encourage you to reach out and see if there's a way that we can assist you. With that, I am happy to get started with today's presentation. Our first presenter is Justine Blank. She and her husband, Brian, created EPI, Engineered Products of Ohio. It's an advanced sensors company, and truly they are a great story. They have taken advantage of a number of different state and federal programs to support research and innovation, including, of course, the SBIRS TTR program. Their products touch the Department of Defense, healthcare, consumer packaged goods. Their end customers or the customers are well-known names like Home Depot and Walmart. And then again, as I said, they've got technologies that can and will be deployed within the Department of Defense. It's very much part and parcel of their business plan. Just opened their manufacturing facility in Warren, Ohio, and we are going to get ready to do a ribbon cutting with them. A great story of grit and determination and using every resource available to grow their business without taking equity and having to dilute. So with that, I will hand over to Justine. Justine, please introduce yourself and your company and tell us what you wish you'd known.
Well, thank you, Barb, for that wonderful presentation. Introduction. Yes, my name is Justine Blank, Engineered Products. I'm going to play from the start here. Things I wish I knew before starting our business. First thing that I absolutely recommend to startup companies. Barb gave a little of an introduction of what we do. It really doesn't matter what we do. What I want to share today is how we got here. And the first thing that I feel I learned from moving to a small company, from working in the commercial industry, is you have to have a validated product. And validation is if you don't have something cool, if you don't have something, it doesn't need to be cool, but it needs to be unique. It needs to have solved a problem. And we learned that right off. And I think that that's number one capability, validate your product. Number two, search your correct business name. We learn a lot of things by our mistakes. We picked Engineered Products, EPI, as a federal name, and then we got our federal name, and then we searched the state of Ohio, and it already existed. So we learned an invaluable lesson about your business name. That's tip number two. Patents, very important. I didn't know that anytime you have a unique idea that doesn't exist, you should file for a provisional patent, meaning that you are protected for 12 months. This was something I learned through the startup process. If you don't do that, you are unprotected from other people when you start talking about your technology. So really be versed in how patents work. Fourth thing that I learned is as a small business, you need to have professional services. And when I mean professional services, accountants that specialize in small businesses, bankers that specialize in small businesses, a great patent attorney that specializes in helping startups file those patents. So the professional services was something that YBI helped us introduce. So, and they have affiliates within their network. So I recommend highly that you talk with them sooner rather than later. Big lesson that we learned. When you start a new company, unless you're a billionaire, you don't have the funds. So you have to look at how are you going to grow your company and what is the cost of that? So there are venture capitals, there are private equities, there are angel investors, and I learned all of that, right, Chandler? I also you can get your own lines of credit from your banks. There is a cost associated with each one of those. As Barb mentioned in the intro, we've been very fortunate that we've been able to grow our company without having to give up equity. You give up equity, you give up control, and there are strings attached. It's not a bad thing. It's a way to very rapidly grow. So we are looking at, and we've been introduced to lots of those different types of funding. Diversify. As a small business, our technology is something called RFID. We thought we were going in to use RFID for one specific use case. But then as we grew and we met different markets, we were able to add different, Barb had mentioned about, we got into retail, we got into the Department of Defense. Your business goes up and down. So when one sector is doing very well, the other might not be. So diversifying is, I think, really key. And you're small and nimble when you're a small business. So you're able to react very quickly to diversification. And networking is probably as much as validating your idea, networking is probably right up there. It's all in who you know. Now, what I learned is I don't have to know everything. I just have to surround myself by people who do. And ta-da, this is where I was exposed to all of the things that I really didn't even know I didn't know. But check out this girl and become very familiar with Chandler. We're laughing here, but these the infrastructure that the Evolve platform has, this webinar that you're sitting on today, they are introducing you to things, and even if it may not be relative right at the moment, if you have a few minutes, if you have a half an hour, sit in on these, because they know Chandler is an expert in knowing 2 months from now, 6 months from now, depending on how your business is, you're going to need these things. And patents, you may have something that you don't think is patentable. You can patent it for $300 and get your timer starting. They introduced us to that. So in summary here, take advantage of everything that Evolve and YBI has to offer. And another thing to consider, and again, Chandler and the team at YBI will let you know, they have a whole infrastructure. They have an ecosystem that got me into the Department of Defense. So they were able to tie into their entire network, and not just the things that are in Youngstown, Ohio, which are amazing, but our advanced manufacturing capabilities were able to grow because of that networking. And that is my summary. Thank you so much for inviting us.
So Justine, I'm going to take questions, but I'd like you to drill down a little bit more on that validation process, because I think that's the message that we try to drive home with all of our companies. Make sure that you actually have a product that somebody is willing to buy. How did you get there?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we had a technology, and it was not a new technology, but how we looked at it, we said, how could our technology solve a problem? And I guess that's a key for any business that you own. Are you solving a problem? And if you are, that is fantastic. You need to articulate that, but then you need to do your market research. Barb mentioned also that we're with the Department of Defense. We've ran all the way out to Indianapolis to sit through a DARPA. DARPA is a Defense Advanced Research entity that promotes innovation. We went through a full day of training with DARPA, and they said that we have, and they do funding, so we have not enough failures for the projects that we fund. And my husband and I, who started the business with me, we looked at each other and said, that's kind of weird. But what that means is they were not having enough failures, meaning that the bar was not high enough for your technology to solve needs. It was just, it is something new, maybe. You haven't really tested your market out. But when they said that they had not enough failures, they really raised the bar. And they said you have to answer 3 main questions. What is your technology's problem that it solves? And who, give me 3 names, I mean 3 names, and they wanted you to say them out loud, who has already said that your technology will solve their problem? And then, do you have a validation on your competition? Is there any competition? And if so, why are you better? If you can't answer those 3 things, you should not be opening up a small business. Does that?
That is a great answer, absolutely. So can you talk a little bit about your consumer packaged goods side and the relationship that you have ultimately with the big boxes?
Absolutely. So the best sales tool for us is a mandate. Walmart, the big giant that Barb's talking about, mandated that if you want to do business with us, you must put an RFID tag on your products, and it has to be in all types of rules and regulations against it. But if you don't do it, you are not. We're going to fine you, and you cannot do business with us. So we, it's pretty harsh, pretty tough to fill that. So what we did is we took our knowledge in RFID and we created a validation and a verification system for Walmart suppliers, not necessarily helping Walmart out, but we are helping those manufacturers who have to comply with this. So RFID is not an easy technology, but we have made it, dumbed it down and made it so you can still run your business, but with our system, you can be in compliancy to Walmart. We've also had some great success, and this is what I mean by diversifying ourselves. As a part of that validation or verification for Walmart, the customers were saying, hey, can't we use this technology for our business? So we are now having actually more success in installing RFID for other reasons and other purposes at these manufacturers who are doing business for Walmart.
Thank you, Justine. And I apologize, I didn't say at the beginning that if you have questions, you can put them in the chat. So please feel free to post anything in there. And then my other apology is I spent all morning talking about advanced sensors, and I know full well that you are RFID, but once I start down a path for the day, apparently I continue down the path for the rest of the day. So please, if anybody has any questions for Justine, pop them into the chat. Justine, my last question for you, I think, is just, can you talk a little bit about the decision-making process for not taking investment? I know that the world tends to look at investment as the key metric for success, and you and Brian strategically decided not to. What went into that decision?
Yeah, so there is, when you go down the venture capital or private equity or even angel investing, there are certain strings attached, and just like everyone, when you invest in something, you expect a return on your investment. But in conjunction with that, you give up a little bit of your control. And specifically, Barb, one of the reasons why we were very cautious about who we engaged with investment is we do work for the Department of Defense in NASA and the Air Force, and we're engaged with the Army right now. You have to be very careful if you follow that trail of money. You don't want to take adversarial money, especially if you're doing work for the United States government or our allies. So that was something that was very important to us. And we were blessed that we were able to self-finance ourselves through our sales of our existing technology. But that is what Barb is referring to. We were on Shark Tank, and we met several people, and they were great investment opportunities, but we were trying to be very cautious. So if you are looking or going down that path, especially as a brand new startup, be careful, because you will have, it can have input on how your business grows.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to take smart money too. It's not just safe money, but also investors that won't drive you in directions that the company may not be ready to go into, or may not be a path that you want to go down. So it's always
Absolutely.
always-
Another thing, Barb, about that is when you are taking on investors, and it is a good thing, but make sure that they mesh with your philosophies, like Barb was just saying, and make sure that they're a value add for you, that they can add something, not only just dollars, because it's not just dollars sometimes. Sometimes it might be, hey, they have a key market that they can introduce your technology to. And maybe they have some defense experience that they can, you can benefit from that. So, and look at banks, SBA loans, and there's all kinds of grants. And I'm a women-owned small business, so that opens up some more doors too. So I encourage you to look at local, state, and federal, as well as venture capital. And Chandler has whole webinars just on VCs and PEs and angels. So her picture's on my screen, so I highly recommend that you take advantage and engage with Chandler. And I'm sure you'll talk about EIRs, Chandler, in your thing, but one thing that YBI has given us is dedicated people who have certain specialties that they handpick for your company, and they are mentors to you. It's amazing what we didn't know.
So we got time for one question here, and I think it actually ties into that very, very nicely. So you get lots of opinions from lots of different people, naysayers, and then just people who are misguided. How did you weigh out those opinions and decide what were useful and what were just noise? Did you?
Yeah, we have a good team here, a very good base and a good team. We bounced all of the people who gave good and bad recommendations to us. We bounced that off of a lot of different people. And Barb, even the bad things taught us something, even that wasn't right for us. It taught us things to look at. And one other key thing, I should have a big bullet just for this, is get a great NDA in place. Because as a small business, you are starting up with something that you feel is solving a problem. Get an NDA in place and get everyone to sign it, and make sure that it is looked over. It needs to be mutual, so you can get the other person to sign it, but get a valid NDA. I think all of the other entrepreneurs on this webinar will agree that's mission critical.
That is great advice. Very good. Very, very good advice. All right. Well, Justine, thank you. You are always fantastic, and I expected nothing less. We appreciate the shout outs, and you've lowered the you've made Chandler's case for her, so maybe we can give her some time off this afternoon. So with that, we will move on to our next presenter. Bahman Tahari is the CEO and founder of Alpha Micron, based in Kent, coming out of the Liquid Crystal Institute. They are the world's fastest tint changing technology using liquid crystal photonics. They've got military applications and also went the SBIR STTR route. Also sports eyewear, automotive, light shutters, all different types of technology there are applications in all different types of technologies is the better way to say that. A co-founder on a number of other companies, including one called Immobilize, which is essentially a spot shot or a way to reduce the risk of school violence. And it's a great company and one that we've been watching very closely and supporting. So with that, I will turn it over to Bahman to tell us what he wished he had known.
Thanks, Barb. This is great. Thanks again for having me here. And Justine, thank you for all of that information. I do wish I knew all of that too. I mean, so that was fantastic. So on my side, I'm a physicist by trade, so I didn't know a lot about business. And I think what I really wish I knew now looking back is I didn't know the definition of entrepreneurship. And it took me, I would say 4 stages to finally understand that. And it was a learning path that goes in there. As Barb said, our company started with 3 of us starting at university with an idea to make a product mainly for the Air Force, and that was to do with augmented reality that they are using for Joint Strike Fighter and other pilots. At the time, the concept was merely a concept. Even the augmented reality was a concept. This is prior to Google or Meta or whatever. This is about 30 years ago. So for that, let me see if this goes forward. I don't know why there it goes. So for me, the thing was really the vision and the plan, and I kind of follow Wayne Gretzky's thing that says skate where the puck will be, not where the puck is. So we saw, well, the augmented reality world is going to become a big thing. So we could be a component, a critical component in that, in the sense of light management. So you'd be able to visually see the image in different lighting conditions. And we were using liquid crystals, which is very unique and a system that's there. So we thought that's where it's going to be. We put it in, it looked like a great vision. It looked like a great plan. And so we went down that path, and that was the stage one of learning about entrepreneurship, is, as Justin said, know where there is an actual need and how you could fit the need and create a plan associated with it. But shortly afterwards, we hit with a stage two, and that is that, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? As Mike Tyson said it. And, reality is even Custer had a plan. But that doesn't mean that because you have a plan, the plan is going to work. And that's what happened to us. We created it, and we went there, and we thought as soon as we make the first one, then the market would be ready for us to go. But it wasn't like that, because there were so many other factors that were sitting there, which was irrelevant to us, but at the same time was part of what was blocking the market from going forward. The projectors, the head-mounted system, the eye tracking, all of these other technologies that were not being evolved. So our idea of understanding where we're going and our plan was in fact not the second thing that needed to be there. So we learned that we had to re-vector. And when we re-vectored, it goes back to these things. I use these guys because I always like analogies, and they help me understand things when people say great things. And this was Lincoln's thing of saying the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I think that was another light that came, a bulb that opened up, in the sense of saying, okay, so the technology could be there, but the other parts of industry are not. So what we have to do is create a system where we can expand our horizon and go into the different directions. And this is where Bart was talking about, in terms of us moving away from just the pure Air Force visor solutions to other projects where we create eyewear for other applications. We are now have a product that is the only tintable eyewear on Army's approved product eyewear list. That's the standard issue eyewear. As well as we went to automotive, architectural, as well as the commercial sector. And we re-pivoted into those directions because we realized that aspect of making a plan doesn't mean it's going to work. In fact, most of the time when you do make a plan, it's not going to work. So you have to have a way of going to a different directions. Then I'll go to that last one, and that was that at the end of the day, excuse me, I just got back from Brazil, and I brought a flu back, and I've been kind of getting better, but not all the way. But it's not about how hard you get hit, but how hard you can get hit and still keep going. And that really, in my opinion, that was a crux of it, is that you have to have an endurance that says that this is a marathon, is not a sprint. And with that mentality, make the decisions based on that, so that you don't kind of go down. So I think these 4 stages of going through it over the past 25 years, if you imagine every 5 years we hit with a new one, helped us kind of move forward. And at the end, the definition that I use for entrepreneurship that now I learned, and it was with the help of this professor called Linda Applegate at Harvard or whatever, but basically says entrepreneurship is a relentless pursuit of a goal without regards to the currently available resources. Now, what that means though, is that it's a relentless pursuit, but not a reckless pursuit, right? So that means that you have to understand where it goes, and you have to understand that your current available aspects and resources may not be there for a while. So you have to kind of plan for that in that aspect. So this is a very short one, and I'm happy to answer any questions specific to it. But I'll take myself off. Thank you.
Oh, well, don't go too far unless you, well, you can take a few minutes to catch your breath there.
Yeah, I know. Excuse me.
I'm sorry that you brought something back with you.
I ended up fixing it there, but I ended up going to the hospital there. It was the you know, you get a flu shot here, which is great, but then you go to Brazil and their flu shots are different, so you can catch a flu there.
Oh, I guess that
Winter,
makes
right?
sense.
We're in the
Yeah.
winter.
So
Anyway.
when you're ready to answer the question, I will
Sure.
ask the audience question first, and then I'll come back to mine. But I did wonder about this. What role did academic collaborations play in your process, your innovation process, and how have they contributed to your success in advanced manufacturing? So I know that there was a lot of work done in the technology itself at Kent State. How did you interface with that?
So we worked quite a lot with the universities, and there's complications when you deal with universities. They're not so used to dealing with companies, so the IP becomes the biggest issue. So I literally, when we started, I was at the university, but I left the university, so there's a barrier that I am not a paid employee of the university, because then you enter into uncertain zones. However, that said, we used SBIRs, STTRs, and we used them quite effectively to deal with some of the, you know, the university has some brilliant minds. And as Justine said before, you surround yourself with some people who are great, and sometimes those have to be temporary. So that's why universities are a great place. We use them a lot.
So you're still pursuing SBIRs, STTRs, even though the company is relatively mature at this point?
We're not, except that what happens is now it's changed a little bit. So because we're kind of have a unique technology that different branches of the government want, and the whole augmented reality has now kicked in after 20 years, they're usually the government comes and says, hey, here's an SBIR, or here's a way that we could fund you to do this particular one. You should apply for that. It's a
Okay,
little bit, the tables have turned. But again, going back to the university, I would say that all of our people are either 1 or 2 degrees of separation from Kent State University.
all right. So a close tie, you know, regardless of what the formal
Absolutely.
relationship is.
Absolutely.
So my question was really about the last slide, without regard to currently available resources, and going back to the conversation with Justine. Did you accept outside investment, or did you grow it all using government
No,
resources?
we did
And
not. We did not. For very similar to Justine's one. But the other reason is you have to be realistic in how long will it take for your product to come out. So a lot of the investors want a 5 to 7 year, whatever, getting out of that system. And we realized that we were very far away from that. And we needed to sustain until the industry caught up to where it needed to be. So if we had an investor, then it wouldn't have worked out well. So we tried to focus on really, we tied our belts and made sure that we survived through the process and wait for the industry, amazingly, the industry to catch up to that concept.
And that's something that we see pretty regularly. A lot of the investors that we are talking to, although it's changing, have the expectation that this is going to mirror what a software company looks like and the return on investment as well as the speed with which you will get it. And that truly is a unique challenge that we have as we try to grow advanced manufacturing companies, is trying to bridge that gap. We'll hear more from Zach, but he's taken the same strategy of just growing internally and making it work. That's not to say we don't want to build a better world where there's investment dollars available, that's patient capital and intelligent and well educated. But at this moment, we're still very much reflective of the software model and haven't made that break yet.
So what we did do, and I'll add to this, Barb, is that more recently we worked with more like a strategic partner in West Coast companies that are really going into the AR space, and they were willing to put funds in for us to expand our manufacturing to supply them the parts that they need without taking equity. So you can imagine that if you are an augmented reality company, you're going to need something to block the light, which is what we have, and we're kind of unique on that. Now, you don't need to buy this whole company with all of the infrastructure. You just want that particular product. And so what we did with our negotiation, we said, all right, that's okay. We are willing to provide you with that product, but we don't have the infrastructure to create that for you. And by the way, that's not a business model that really is profitable for us as much as some other ones. So there's a missed opportunity there. So in return for us going into this to give you a component which is critical to you because you're making your money from your software, this is a hardware, so the money doesn't matter on that side, then you need to put X amount of money into us without getting ownership at all and allow us to create that. And I think that was a lucky thing that we were able to do.
How did you identify those strategic partners?
Well, in our particular case, they came to us. There were
Okay.
bigger companies that the other advantage of the university is that some of the students here who were interning for us, we had quite a lot of internships, they went on to larger companies in West Coast. And then when the time came for them to be involved in those projects and they realized what they're missing, which was what the Air Force missed, or was wanting 20 years ago, they said, hey, here's this company that we use the technology. So it's as you said, is building up relationships over decades.
Yeah, but a great point. You never know where those interns are going to end up. So it's great when those connections proved to be as beneficial as they were. So congratulations to you for having developed that relationship.
Yeah.
All right, last call for any questions for Bauman. All right, Bauman, thank you again. We are so grateful for your participation and support. This has been great.
Thanks, Barb. It's always great to have you.
All right. And our last founder speaking today is Zach DiVincenzo, who is the co-founder and president of Juggerbot 3D. Juggerbot 3D is an original equipment manufacturer of medium-sized additive manufacturing equipment. He also has a contract with the Department of Defense to create a large format printer that they would then operate as well, producing parts and components for the government. He has an interesting partnership with a pretty significant organization out of Northeast Ohio, BDI, Bearing Distributors, Inc. They're a billion-dollar company with that produces and supplies industrial parts in 19 different countries around the world. They are working with Juggerbot to help to commercialize the Juggerbot equipment, but also to meet the needs of their own customer base. And he has been a great partner to us on a number of different projects our additive manufacturing team works on, including products like advanced tooling, using additive manufacturing to create products and processes for companies like Goodyear that you couldn't make using traditional manufacturing. So with that, I will turn it over to Zach.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb. Good afternoon, everybody. Excited to participate in this webinar today. I only have 2 slides here, and I did the best I could to just actually I had a lot of reflecting. I love this exercise that I was asked to do to participate in this. It's sometimes very difficult to think through your history of your business and reflect on the good, the bad, the indifferent. But Juggernaut 3D, we were established in 2014, so we just hit our 10-year mark at the YBI. And we're blessed. We're survivors through COVID, and we are incredibly blessed on where we're at today. But this was interesting. And so I did the best I could to kind of almost put together 10 main items. If I were to go back to myself 10 years ago, I was 24, graduated from Youngstown State University with a degree in industrial and systems engineering. At that time, I had background in fabrication and welding, but I was really trying to think about this in the terms of, if I could pull myself aside, what would I tell myself? So I'm going to try to hit on those things right now for you guys today. Let me click on this real quick. As a continuation of what Barb was saying, Juggernaut 3D, we're a designer. We are the designer and manufacturers of industrial grade additive manufacturing equipment. We are technically an OEM in this additive manufacturing industry. The technology that we focused on specifically hits on thermoplastic extrusion or material extrusion. So we are in that realm. We're not in metals, ceramics, glass. The 7 ASTM identified technologies, we are material extrusion. And more specifically, we focused on pellet fed, so that we would have a wider range of opportunities with plastics in a pellet form. We're here located in the Youngstown Business Incubator in Tech Block Building 5, and we build, I would say, medium-sized systems. Our printers today print 3 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. That's medium in the realm that there are people out there that are building 60-foot printers. So we are medium. So I like to start off my first bullet. For us, or for me, looking back to my younger self, I would have told myself to focus on a more robust technical plan. As an engineer, I had just wanted to make things. Immediately graduating from college, knowing that I could design something, I had the right resources to be able to identify how to make something. I can tinker enough that I could create automation. And it's very easy to kind of go down that path, the rapid innovation and the long plan of prototypes and innovation could stunt your growth, and also could almost make you not wanted to be invested in if you're just someone who's just focusing on this eternal, circularity of changing your product, and it's never good enough. So as traditional engineers, it's never good enough. You're your hardest critics on yourself. It's never really ready to be launched, and a lot of young companies, specifically in additive manufacturing, can't find that right period of time to say it's good enough. It's ready to be put in front of the market, or it's ready to be put in front of an investor. So for me, I would have wished I would have went back to myself, told myself to stop for a minute, to really think about a robust technical plan, regardless if I was focusing on equipment, software, materials, or a service. Under the AM industry, I wish I would have took a minute to think about a 2-year, 3-year roadmap and put some energy and time into thinking about where my milestones and goals were. Align that with a budget, because if you're using your own money, it's got to go somewhere. And if you're using someone else's money, you're now going to have someone, critiquing you along the way. And I would have really tried to put a focus on understanding time. When I first started the business, Barb, and at that time, Jim Kostler at the YBI, would tell me war stories about things taking 3 times longer than what an entrepreneur thinks it's going to take. And I really wish I would have listened to them. They were absolutely right. Every single time that I got to a certain point, it was much longer than I originally anticipated. So I really wish I would have taken that approach. Number 2 is know your competition. What's really unique is that the YBI actually didn't accept us as a portfolio company the first time we pitched to them. So 10 years ago, when we had the idea to become a portfolio company, or we wanted the space, we wanted the resources of the YBI, we pitched the idea, 3 young engineers, got solid plan we thought was solid plan for 3D printing, and immediately shut down and said, you need to better understand your market. You need to better understand what your problem is, better understand who you're selling to, understand the buyer's persona and the buyer's journey. And with that, you're going to learn some competition. So at that point in time, we pumped the brakes. We put an extensive amount of time into better understanding our market. Being the nerds that we were, we actually developed a unique macro-based program that if I made a bunch of phone calls, I can automate the procedure to kind of like a call center, automate the procedure of my results. In that time, we identified 2 to 3 main competitors, and we stopped right there. We thought that was enough. That we knew enough information. We'll make that our North Star, and we'll focus on that. It wasn't until 1 year later that we went to our first large event out in Long Beach, California, that we've realized our current technology was one of 50, not one of 3 or one of 4. 50 other companies were doing exactly what we were doing. So it was a little bit of a validation, like, oh, we're on the right track. We're doing it what's needed. However, there's no excuse in this day and age that you can't take the necessary time to know what someone else is doing on the other side of the country, because now you're one of many than one of few. So take some time, know your competition. Third is don't get distracted and avoid the noise. It's funny that someone brought that up earlier. This is going to probably contradict to some of the things that get advised in an incubator, or also get advised by young entrepreneurs, is that, find advisors, surround yourself with good people, and listen to them, right? Or if you're going to bring them on, listen to them. I'm going to be honest with you, though. I had several advisors over my 10 years, and sometimes it wasn't the best advice, and it was a lot of noise, right? Where someone would say, you need to immediately start working on this. And as maybe an engineer or a small group, we just immediately went to work on that and not try to do all things at one time, because you can only focus on so much. Over the 10 years, I can easily look back and say there's 3 years I probably could have cut out completely, purely because of just got distracted. I got immensely distracted on where my focus should be, how much more time I should focus on putting together a robust business presentation to pitch to 1,000 investors. And all that time reduced the ability for me to get to market faster and focus on my product. So I did get distracted a bit. There was some noise. And over 10 years, I found ways to distinguish the differences between the two and what makes sense to take my priorities. Number 4 is build a network. I was raised with the idea that you should surround yourself with greater, smarter, brighter people. Couldn't afford it back then, but someone used to tell me that you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You need to hire the smartest person in the room. My response to them was, I'm poor and broke. I can't afford it. So I don't know how to do that part. But one thing, there's no excuse that you can't build a network. You can't get outside your shell, and you can't just do everything you possibly can to. We have LinkedIn at our fingertips. We have Instagram. We have events at the YBI. We have these events that we can participate in. And even if I don't have the funds to do something, or I don't have the answers for something, someone else does. So I'd rather be a friend and grow my network. And I wish I would have done that at an earlier stage in my company than waiting several years, because right now I'm reaping a significant amount of benefits right now because I have a great network, great partnerships, great friends. Wow, I just realized my apologies. My title said 10. I think I might have ran out of 10, and I only have 8 on this, so I got to redo this. So I do apologize. Let's go to number 5. Focus on what you're good at. In 3D printing, things are moving quick, right? You need to be able to be somewhat agile, but I would be very honest with you, don't outstep what you're capable of doing. You need to be very conscious about what you yourself as an entrepreneur or a business owner is capable of doing, or what your network's capable of doing. And if you just overstep your capabilities, you run the risk of failing drastically, giving yourself a black eye that people don't want to work with you on, or just completely distracting you to the point that you cannot work on what your actual goals were. So for me, I'd tell myself, go directly back to the, hey, just focus what I'm good at. Don't try to go above and beyond because people are telling you that you need to be able to be very diverse. The common statement I heard for the first 3 years that I could not get out of my head is that you need to have a defensible differentiator. I mean, that's the most common thing someone's going to be telling you when you're starting your business, which they're absolutely right to do. Don't focus on something that you're a dime a dozen of. You got to be defensible. But that was a common thing. And I then took that as I'm in seeking to be completely different. And that did venture off to something that maybe I wasn't good at, and it really exposed the company to say, okay, maybe the company's maybe not as good as where it needs to be, and I need to redefine or at least just realign what I'm good at and what I'm going to be able to progress faster at. Number 6, marketing matters. I will be 100% honest with you. For the first 3 years, I didn't want to market one bit. I think as a normal engineer, you want to stay in your bubble. You want to stick to yourself. You don't want to talk about what you're doing. Maybe you're a little bit scared about what you're creating is worthwhile in someone else's, viewpoint. And you don't need a market. Maybe someone says the product markets itself, right? That's baloney. And I wish I would have told myself that, 10 years ago. You have to get out there. You have to start talking about your product and your services. You then just need to be very open and upfront, transparent of where you're at with the company and what you can do and not oversell yourself. So there's a fine line there, but it does matter. And it is not as simple as just turning on the switch and say, yep, one day I'm going to start advertising. Advertising and marketing takes time to evolve. It does take time to yield good results. You can't throw money at a marketing campaign and expect to see a result within 6 weeks. You actually have to take some of that data, do another campaign, and have some longevity to make sure that what you're putting out there to the world matters, how you're building up your relationships and getting people to know what you're capable of doing. It takes time, just like developing a product. I wish I would have done that much sooner, and I think we would have been a lot farther along if we would have done that. Wow, I did a terrible job with my numbering. I will correct these before it goes out to anybody. What would be number 7 is having a long-term plan. I think most engineers get short-sighted. I do think most technology companies get short-sighted on just what they're working on, and that makes sense to some degree. I talked about avoiding the noise. I talked about trying to just focus on what you're good at and not overstepping your capabilities. But going along my first statement of having a robust plan, having a long-term plan, you need to be able to speak to that. If you're a company that you are interested to sell one day or take on investment, that's a marriage, right? You need to have the ability to have a vision or explain what the view of this company is going to be on a long-term plan, because the people are putting their money and their support in you. You cannot only work in increments of 3 months. You need to have the ability to show a long-term plan of your product, your services, and what it can evolve to be. And last but not least, which goes along with everything, is focus on growth. I already made the comment that AM, or additive manufacturing, is an incredibly fast-paced technology. Someone's going to outpace you. Someone will outbeat you. You need to be constantly thinking about growth. You need to think about that next version of that product or the next way to sell that product into the eyes of the customer. Being obviously, as you're scaling up and going along with that long-term plan, that you have those milestones in place, and things take time. So we talked about at length with 2 of the previous presenters, SBIRs, SCTRs, some of the government funds. That is not fast. You're putting proposals in place that will take 60 to 90 to maybe 120 days to even review if you're being accepted. Even if you're accepted, we could be talking at 3 to 6 months before your contract's in place for you to start working. So we could be looking at a year to even have an opportunity to work with some of these organizations. So you have to be thinking about long-term plans. You have to be thinking about growth. Barb mentioned that we were recently won an appropriations project through the DoD. Even though the project is completing in December 2025, I have to right now start making proposals for the continuation of that project so that I have funds available for my employees, because I scaled, and I have funds available to be able to continue that project, because it takes so long in doing so. And I'm not even done with my project. So I have to start putting together a robust technical plan on something that I haven't completed yet. Very difficult, but I've had 10 years to now to understand what I'm capable of doing and where my priorities are. So I have good confidence in what I can do. Back then, I didn't think I needed to put this plan in place. I thought I could just flip the switch and it turns on. It doesn't. If you're an entrepreneur in this industry, buckle up. This is a long-term game here. Regardless if you try to scale within 18 months and sell it, that doesn't just stop right there. Even if you sell your business, you're tied to it for a bit of time, because you're what made that business. So this is a full investment for yourself, your family, and everything you do. You have to think about growing it. You have to think about that long-term plan. So
Zach,
that's all I have today, but I'm open to
you were
questions.
great, but could you talk a little bit about the downside of working with the Department of Defense and the challenges that poses?
Oh, we don't have enough time today to do it. So, there's some downsides with tying your business to defense or government, which is they're always going to want you to be better. They're always going to want you to be ready, and they will not guarantee anything. So that's a troubling part of this business. We, as a current developer of new technology, we purposely wanted to make sure that we're able to build a business focusing on private sector, and that government is a very small percentage. Even though if it's funding our R&D, that we're not putting all our eggs in one basket. We get teased at times. We develop a new technology. We've had some mild success with the Navy, and they'll be the first ones to tell you, hey, if this goes well, we might put multiple machines across America, so be ready. But when's ready and how many? And if I have to scale up, when do I scale up? And if I have to support you, when to do that? They won't have the answers. So there's just the natural growth process with working with the government. Probably my other biggest gripe is communication. That's very difficult. They've put in some fantastic platforms in place for you to be able to gather your information, submit proposals, but don't expect that you're going to be able to pick up the phone and talk to people. Like you don't talk to people like we're talking today. They may not answer right away. They don't have answers themselves. They're another cog in the wheel, usually who you're working with. So it's tough. I would not advise anybody to have a business fully dedicated to government projects. We're not Lockheed or General Dynamics. But if you have a product or a service that 100% can be utilized in that sector, it is what has supported us. So I can't knock it too much. We have been blessed with having the opportunity to get both state and federal funds. That's probably kept us alive. I'm just want to be open to say that you have to take that in consideration, from the time it's going to take and the way you're going to communicate with them. It's going to be difficult.
Hey, Zach, one question from the audience, and then we'll wrap up. But can you share any insights into the challenges of scaling a 3D printed startup, especially in terms of production capabilities and supply chain management?
Man, that's tough. Our
Yeah.
money is number
Money.
one. I will tell you, money is number one. We started out with 3 co-founders. For 3 to 4 years, we had 2 co-founders and 3 employees. You're doing it pretty much everything yourselves, or you're wearing many hats. You have an engineer who's also helping you purchase your equipment, your inventory, and then also helping you build. You have another guy helping you build, but then also servicing and supporting customers. As you're scaling people, you're also scaling inventory. So funds and cash was probably the hardest part for these past 10 years, is having the cash to be able to float your inventory. And obviously bank and SBA loans are going to be probably your best friend. Inventory or supply chain management was not tough. There is enough out there in the world today, right? We fall under, automation and manufacturing. It's not difficult to identify distributors. Bearing Distributors Incorporated is a distributor of general industrial components. You can buy gears, gearboxes, motors, things like that. That wasn't too difficult. Scaling the requirement in terms of cash and space was the hardest part for us. Thank God we worked with the YBI, and space was available for us to scale. I will tell you that you need to scale moderately, not over account like you're going to sell 20 to 30 units of something, put $500,000 in inventory, and then just sit and wait. Obviously, it's a 2-legged, 3-legged stool of being able to have all of that scale at the same time. But you have your natural troubles of how are you storing everything? Do you have the cash to support your inventory? Do I have people to assemble? And the second you start scaling production, I can't assemble every machine anymore, right? I have to grow the other part of the business. I have to start selling machines, or I have to start working on marketing. So bringing in the right people that you can trust to build your machines with the quality that you would have done as an owner that was hard for the first time. And also, if you're designing a machine and someone's never seen it before, it's like assembling an IKEA set without any instructions. So you got to think about all the things that you wouldn't have done when you're by yourself, you know, assembly instructions, quality inspection procedures, safety procedures. I didn't have to think about having safety procedures until I hired my first employee. I wouldn't care if I cut my finger, but now I have to care about the security of my employees. So you have to start being a little bit more robust as a business when you start scaling.
All right. Thank you, Zach. That was great. We really appreciate you helping to support this program and sharing your insights. All 6.5 kind of them. Yes. We'll work on your math skills later.
I got to work on this.
All right, so quickly to talk about the technology entrepreneurship program, also known as Evolve at YBI, is Chandler Fiffick, who we already met through Justine's slide. Chandler, you want to give us a few highlights?
Sure. Do you want to unmute and I'll?
Yep.
Or do you want? Okay. You want to turn your sound? Okay, is that working? Can you hear me? Okay. Well, yeah, again, thank you to everybody who is attending today. I am the director of the Evolve Technology Program at YBI. I was, I had a plan here, but because Justine gave me such a phenomenal opening, I'm able to cut my time down a little bit. Evolve is one of 4 programs within the Youngstown Business Incubator. If you're not familiar, we are a 5-building campus in downtown Youngstown, Ohio. Evolve specifically is a provider for the Entrepreneurial Services Program. So we specifically work with Northeast Ohio startups. The Entrepreneurial Services Program, is also known as ESP, is an initiative through the state of Ohio's Department of Development to basically increase commercialization of outcomes for tech-based startups. As we are an ESP, we are funded through the state of Ohio. Because we are funded through the state, we do not take equity in any of our companies. We're truly a service-based organization, and we do not charge a fee. So again, that is a huge benefit to our startups who are trying to stay lean. This is my phenomenal team, and this is, I think, why the program has been such a success. These are our entrepreneurs in residence. They are a team of seasoned veterans within their particular fields of knowledge. I'm very proud of this team simply because they do such good work. I know Justine worked with Jeremy Spalding. He's actually now working a little closely with that company, but not as an EIR. The team was put together to reflect a diversified company. And what I mean by diversified, I mean diversified knowledge. So if we get a new portfolio company, they always meet with me first. So I make it a point to know all of our companies and founders. They will get paired with an initial EIR depending on their needs, but they can work with all of them, multiple at a time, based on where they are and what they need. Again, you get a company in ideation stage, they may need to work with somebody that knows general operations. You get a company that needs MVP development or just in general software help, they're going to work with Joe Dunko. Dana Allender is, I believe he's on this call, Dana, and he is phenomenal. He works with our companies that need to sell, and they all need to sell. I think that is one of the hardest things to explain to early stage startups is you actually have to go sell your product before you are going to get venture capital to help you scale. So Dana spends a lot of time doing that. And that's just, I'm not going to call all of them out, but I again want to say how proud I am of these men and women. Our companies get to work with them for free. These are people that would charge a significant consultant fee normally. So we're very lucky for that. Okay. These are just some of the resources that my program offers for free. I guess it's the left side, the white, that's really specific to Evolve. We do all of these things and more, but I just kind of wanted to put it up there just so you can say, so I don't have to call it all out. One thing I'll comment on is IYBI, that's International YBI. We have, not of late, but in recent years, spent a lot of time trying to attract companies from overseas or maybe even other states to Youngstown, Ohio, or Northeast Ohio in general. We've done a great job with it, if I would like to toot my own horn there, and Barb's and Rory's. We have a number of international companies that have moved second operations or full operations to this region. We are able to help you with immigration, you know, Delaware Sea Corporation, all the things that you need. We've been able to help our companies around that process. So the orange on the right side, this is our advanced manufacturing services. And again, just a few things that that team does. They spend a lot of time, they're manufacturing industry experts and engineers. They spend a lot of their time integrating new technologies and advanced materials into the manufacturing sector. So they do a phenomenal job with it, because all of our any of our advanced manufacturing tech companies qualify as tech-based. So my program works with them on the entrepreneurial side. The advanced manufacturing program works with them, government grants, manufacturing clients, and way, way more. So if you would like to know more about that, please reach out to me directly, because I don't want to speak for them. They deserve to speak for themselves. Uh-oh. Okay. We also offer to our portfolio companies, like Zach said, and Justine as well. We have office space, co-working space, manufacturing space for startups in the region. It is, I believe, $6 a square foot per year for office space and $8 for manufacturing. So you really can't beat that. This is what we're in the middle of a wonderful and exciting renovation, and these are some of our renderings, and actually starting to look like that a little bit. So we're very excited about that. Beautiful building. We're going to expand and get more startups into our space. I would be remiss if I did not mention Shark Tank. It's one of our most favorite event. It's actually a YBI fundraiser that we put on annually. This year, YBI Shark Tank has raised, I believe in the pot, we have about 30 grand of non-dilutive funding. So it's the cash prize to the winner of this pitch event. It takes place on October 24th. We probably have about 700 to 800 people attending from all over the region. So it's a phenomenal networking event. Even if you are not pitching, free local marketing, you can't go wrong. So I wanted to throw that out there. It's coming up in October. So if you haven't bought a ticket and you're interested or just want to learn more, reach out to me. And lastly, I just wanted to put these numbers up there. This is our metrics from 2023. And this probably reflects only 45 to maybe 50 of our portfolio companies, because they do not all contribute to the metrics every time. So our revenue generated last year alone for our companies was 30 million, jobs maintained and created 400, capital raised $152 million, and research dollars acquired 13 million. So phenomenal numbers. I'm so proud of the entire team for helping, and obviously our companies who are the ones that did it, but it's seeing it right there on paper is pretty astonishing. Okay, and that was it. I actually wanted to add, and I wrote it down. So I think just something Justine had said earlier, I meet with a lot of companies every day, different companies every day, some that come into the portfolio, some that don't. The biggest thing for anyone that is thinking of starting a company on this call, you must not just have an idea. You've got to have a problem, and the problem needs to be painful enough to get customers to purchase your product. And your value proposition has to be significant enough for customers to basically change their current ways of their lifestyle. So to get them to change from one product to another, or to go to your app, or to, you really have to be solving a big problem. So that is what I kind of want to leave with. You know, don't come to us with an idea, come to us with a problem that needs solving. That is probably the best advice you will get, maybe from our former CEO, Jim Kostler. I don't know, maybe Barb said it first. But yeah, so that is it. I'm happy to answer any questions. I think we're right up on time. Or, oh, we're a little over. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and feel free to reach out should you have any questions that we don't have time to get answered today. I would love to thank our founder speakers. These are phenomenal, phenomenal people that have truly done a great job with their businesses. I learned so much just from listening, and I've met them all before and spoken to them all many times. So thank you again for being willing to spend your time today with us. We are going to be, like Barb said earlier, having a series of these virtual workshops. They will all be posted on the Evolve webpage, but the next one is going to focus on how to utilize IIoT and AI for your advanced manufacturing startup. We're going to have some phenomenal speakers. It will be September 25th. It's a Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. You'll be seeing the marketing come out for that pretty soon. So, oh, and I got some, okay, there's all thank yous. So yes, please reach out to me if you have any questions, and I hope to see you on the September 25th event.
Thank you all.
Thank you.